I'd like you to give a nice warm welcome to our other trainers. We have Suzanne and George. Well, today we're going to go on a journey throughout the world, and we're going to study the unique and natural behaviors of animals that live in the rivers, on the ground, in the trees, and up onto the limitless sky. Our first part of the journey is going to start in North America, right here where you can find South Dakota. Is anybody here from South Dakota? Yeah, good for you. Well, this next animal was orphaned right here in South Dakota, and that's how he got his name, Orphe. He'll be out here in just a second. You may wonder why we can get this animal out on a leash, and the reason why is because this animal is quite aggressive towards other animals. In fact, they've been known to scare off grizzly bears in the wild. But our Orphe is not so aggressive, and he's coming out here with Suzanne in just a second.
Here we come.
Here he comes. How about a nice warm welcome for our North American badger, Orphe.
Our badger boy. Oh, we've got some Dakota Digger fans out there, that's for sure. Well, not many people have seen a badger up close and personal, especially at the end of a leash. Pretty unusual, isn't it? Well, he had an unusual beginning. In fact, the family dog brought him home. He was playing with him like you'd play with a ball. He was round, slimy, and wet. The rancher didn't even know what he was, kind of unraveled him, so to speak. Found out he was a badger less than 10 days open, 10 days old, because his eyes were not even open as of yet. The rancher wanted to save the poor little creature. He took him home, started bottle feeding him every 2 hours. Now, to keep him safe and warm on those Dakota nights, he took him to bed with him. Can you imagine a badger growing up in your bed? Well, they are well known for their digging ability. This is 10 reasons why you don't want a badger in your house. Puts Freddy Krueger to shame, don't it? Well, he started using those long sickle-like claws. First thing to go were the baseboards. Next was the linoleum. He even made it down to the subfloor. But the clincher to finding Orphe a new home, and a permanent one, was the fact they came home one evening, found the refrigerator door open, and he was inside, and they figured, how did that happen? So they watched him the next evening. He uses those long sickle-like claws, flips himself on his back, and pries open the seal. Climbed in, finished the bottom 3 shelves. Well, we have been the happy recipient for the past 3 years with him. However, he only works part-time because they do go into a semi-torpor stage. That means they basically go into their burrowing system around October, November, don't really venture out too much until about February. However, we have been working with our moat. And why, you might ask? This guy is in the Mustela family. That means he's related not only to the skunk and the weasel, but to the North American river otter. So we thought, okay, let's train here. This is 3 long years. World famous San Diego Zoo trainers. Are you ready? Rescue the carrot. That's all he does, folks. Thank you. Well, this little guy could probably dig his way all the way to China. He has definitely dug his way into our hearts. You have one last thing to do, buddy. Give me 5. Ah, that boy. There you go. Take your little grape. And say goodbye to our North Dakota digger. That's our badger boy. That's Orphe.
Well, now we're going to be leaving South Dakota and traveling to the cold, frozen Siberian tundra region where you can find reindeer. Now, as you may already know, reindeer do have antlers, and antlers differ from horns quite greatly. Horns can't come off, they're part of the skull, whereas antlers are shed every year. First year of our little reindeer's life, she shed these little antlers. Last year, she shed these. Antlers have points, they're forked, and they're actually boned with velvet that actually grow quickly. And she's actually 6 years old now, and she's growing her 7th set of antlers. How about a nice warm welcome for our reindeer, Tundra! Here she comes,
and here she is, thank you. There she is, an impressive animal, as you can see right over here. Now, you're probably going to be noticing the difference between the antlers that Andrea just showed you and what she has right now. Right now we say that she's in the process of, or she's in velvet, which is basically the process of growing out her next rack of antlers. You'll be noticing that they do have this little fuzzy covering. That's how they got that name of velvet. And what it basically is just a lot of skin. It has extra blood vessels that nourishes the growth of their nourishes the growth of the antlers, which is the fastest growing bone in their body. These animals are found in areas where it does get rather cold, so they do have several adaptations that allow them to survive those particular areas. First of all, they do have quite a bit of thick fur. The fur itself, first of all, right now she's shedding. I'll show you just how much she's shedding, as you can see right there. Now that is basically hollow hair. It's similar to like a polar bear's hair. And basically what you're looking at there is insulation. And also they do have fur covering pretty much every part of this animal's body. In fact, as she marks up right over here. Come on, Tucker, right over here, Penny. All the way up, show them like you're trained. Excellent girl. Now she does have lots of fur that covers the nose. As you walk around today, you'll be noticing all sorts of other hoofstock that do have shiny noses. That's because they have exposed noses. Having fur over there basically cuts down and reduces the heat loss. Same thing between the splits of her hooves. They do have fur there as well, and again, does help them to keep a little bit warmer. Those hooves are specialized. They are a little bit on the broad side, kind of rather big as well. And if you think of snowshoes, that's the exact same theory there as well. That way they don't go sinking into the snow. Those hooves are definitely used for looking out for some food, and they do eat lots of pretty much vegetation, like leaves, bark, mushrooms, berries, things of that nature. And what we do feed her here a lot of, which is her favorite, are these little pellets, which is basically crushed hay that for some reason is just very delicious for her. And they're going to show you how she actually digs for the food. I'm going to go ahead and drop the pellet in the water, and hopefully she'll dig in there and rescue that poor pellet also. Go ahead and rescue the pellet, it's drowning. I'm going to show us a little bit of a Baywatch impersonation here. Come on, hang out with the antlers. There you go. Oh, she did it. You see that? She scraped it once. Oh, there's again. You can give her a big round of applause. She did it twice for you folks. She'll be very excited about that. And she rescued the poor pellet, all the poor pellets now being digested. Now, what do you think is the most dangerous animal of these animals here, of the reindeer? What do you think? Just go ahead and scream it out loud. What's a dangerous animal for these guys? Wolves, polar bears, anything else?
Grizzly.
Tigers, actually, yes, we get in Siberia. There are Siberian tigers. Lions from Africa, a little bit of a different area, but that's a good guess, though. You're not going to believe it. Humans is another good one, too. You're not going to believe it. It's actually mosquitoes. There's big, huge swarms of mosquitoes out there. There's millions and millions of mosquitoes out there in those big swarms that can basically drain the blood of one of the reindeer, causing it to be anemic and eventually dying. Having all that fur there does protect them against the mosquito bites, and also they escape by even swimming. They're excellent swimmers as well. The antlers, I'm not sure if Andrea mentioned it or not, but the antlers do come off every season. On the other hand, if a horn were to break off, it just never grows back. Also, the females and males both have antlers in this particular species of deer. In fact, 2 species of deer have that, where the females also have antlers. Okay, all right, we got a little bit of different music going on there. It's the end of the day, it's all right. And now let's talk about the reindeer. What was I saying about them? Antlers. Oh yes, the females usually drop their antlers somewhere around February. Okay, males usually drop them somewhere around November. Who do you think is pulling Santa's sleigh? It's the females, it's the ladies, right? Well, I'll tell you what, some people believe that ladies are better drivers. Not 100% sure about that, but I'll tell you what, they at least stop off for directions whenever they're lost, right? That's to do it for our Siberian reindeer. That was Tundra.
Now we're going to travel away from the cold Siberian tundra region to the hot outback of Australia, where you can find the 2nd largest bird in the world that can't fly. It's not the ostrich from Africa, but the emu. You guys are very smart. The emu from Australia. Our emu's name is Daphne. She's about 25 years old. She was hatched right here at the San Diego Zoo. And she'll be coming on out here. These birds can be up to 100 pounds, which is why they can't fly. And here she comes. Have a nice warm welcome for Daphne, our emu.
Thank you. Well, she is one big lady from the land down under, being Australia. As she mentioned, she's the 2nd largest bird in the world. The African ostrich is the largest. Ostrich has the capability of stretching upwards to 8 feet and weighing in about 300 pounds. They're rather impressive. But an emu is a slightly smaller version than that. You can see she can stretch it up to about 6 feet tall and weigh in around 100 pounds. The ostrich, as well as emus, cassowaries, and rheas, are all members of the rat-type family. Simply put, it's a group of large, flightless birds. So why don't these guys quite get off the ground? Well, besides this immense amount of weight to work with, let me show you what they've got for flight power. Feast your eyes, folks. Here we go. Boink. Oh, it's pretty sad to say we're a bird. But what she lacks in wings and flight muscles, this lady makes up in leg power. Take a look at her legs, because she's well equipped for ground travel, moving out at speeds of about 30 miles an hour. One swift kick from an emu packs a punch that can break a human's thigh bone or keep a whole pack of wild dogs at bay. But the best part of the emu story is for you ladies in the audience. Girls, hold on to your seats. because Daddy Emu is in charge of incubating the eggs once the females have laid them in a collective and common nest. That's right, he incubates them for about 60 days by himself. Then he rears and takes care of the young for 1.5 years until they're all grown. I knew we had some mammals out there. Hold on, Risky's girl, because it gets better. Daddy does all this, so the obvious question is, where's Mom all this time? Ladies? Shopping's our #1 answer. And she's shopping emu style. She's gone back to that bachelor herd. She's flirting her days away and selecting a mate for next season. Oh, you rebels, you. Okay, you want to see what she does? Now, the reason she feels like she's done her share, she lays 6 to 12 of these. That was right on cue, aren't you impressed? Yeah, and on that happy note, we're going to turn Miss Daphne around. That's going to be doing it for our big girl from the land down under. That's Daphne, our emu.
Nicely done, you two. Go ahead and keep those applause going. She loves those applause. Yes, she does. Now she's so into the animal. Okay, all right. So I do have a question for everybody. How many of you folks came to the San Diego Zoo to see some big cats? Any big cat lovers out there? Yeah, oh, quite a bit of you there. Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to be meeting one of the most special ones that we have here in the zoo. In fact, it's the only one you're going to find here at the San Diego Zoo. So what I want you to do is to go ahead and get those cameras ready. Have them focus right over here in this one section here. So just pretend I'm the animal. You can focus them kind of on me. So are you ready to meet this little critter? Oh, that was weak. Are you ready to meet him? Yeah! All right, welcome out, Sven! At some point. Sven! Here he is! Woo! Good boy. All right, already. Not a big cat, but isn't he a cutie? Look at that. Oh, I'm telling you. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Just in case you all were confused, I am going to go ahead and take off all this stuff he's wearing. And there he is again, Sven Olaf. No, you're supposed to turn around over there. There you go. Okay, go ahead. There he is. Good, everybody. Well, I'll tell you what. He is here to help us explain that not only do we have human trainers, but we also have animal trainers here at the San Diego Zoo as well. Here at the San Diego Zoo, we do, or Hunting Amphitheater, we do have various types of animals, as you've been noticing today. And he basically helps out with some of the training with some of those critters. Helped out with the training with the reindeer and also some of the leopards that we have here as well. Now, he does have a big sister, and I mean big sister only because of size. The sister is much bigger, but she's actually younger than this critter right here. And what we've done is we've put her together with a cheetah. You ready to meet her? Yeah. Her name is Karoo. Here she comes out. Go ahead and put those hands together for Karoo, our South African cheetah. There she is. Yet another impressive animal. You're going to be noticing that she's going to be looking all around. You notice that? She just came out here and immediately started looking all over the place. And what happens is, these animals definitely have to keep an eye on their environment. Got to make sure that there's nothing out that's going to threaten them. And in this case, since she's a female, she definitely have to pay attention to see if there's anything that might harm her little ones. She doesn't have little ones now, but they still have that innate behavior. Now, what happens is we put these two critters together since they're about 6 months old. And what happens is the cheetah, since she is endangered, we do take her off grounds to let her go ahead and help us explain the plight of some of the endangered animals out there. And so since she may not necessarily be quite so comfortable in the environment, that's where the dog came into play. If the dog is nice and calm, she's nice and calm. The dog's a little bit nervous, she gets a little bit nervous as well. Perfect partnership. This is the fourth time that we've actually done with this with a cheetah and a dog. A 5th time up at the Wegeforth Bowl for future shows up there as well. Now you probably are aware that these animals, the cheetahs that is, are the fastest land mammal. They can reach speeds of up to about 70 miles an hour. For those of you in the metric system, that's about 110 kilometers per hour. And believe it or not, in 2 seconds flat, they can reach speeds of up to about 60 miles an hour. Very quick, much quicker than some of those, excuse me, than some of those sports cars out there. They have several adaptations that allow them to actually go those speeds. Take a look at the head when she turns around to you. She does have a very small head, bullet-shaped head, and very small ears. Basically, aerodynamics is what we're talking there. That way it cuts down the air resistance there. Very long, flexible spine that allows her to actually take longer leaps as she's running. Very long legs. At the end of the long legs, she has semi-retractable claws, very similar to those claws of dogs. Not like the other types of cats that can retract them all the way back. Also, at the very back end, they do have a very long tail. It's kind of on the flat side, and Suzanne's going to show you right there. Now, that is used kind of like a rudder. Actually, otters have that as well. When they want to do a turn, all they have to do is kick the tail over to one side, and that helps them do those quick turns. What do you think they hunt during the day or during the night? What do you think? How many think that they are diurnal hunters, daytime hunters? Go ahead and raise your hands. Okay, there's a few of you there. Are you getting them the answer? And how many think that they're nocturnal animals? Or hunters, that is. Okay, so we say that. I see a lot of people abstaining out there. I know which ones you are. I'll have a chat with you later on. All right, so these animals are actually diurnal hunters. They hunt during the day, so you can give yourself an applause. Yes, you probably have guessed that right, yeah? But she helped you, I'm sure, too. She didn't? Oh, okay, all right. Look at the face, too. Notice that they have the dark markings that crosses the eye. It's called an ocular stripe. Why do you think they have those dark markings that crosses the eye? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?
For the glare of the sun.
The glare, exactly. Breaks off the reflection of the sun bouncing off of their cheeks. Natural sunglasses, you can say. These animals are very endangered. As I mentioned earlier, out in the wild there are several reasons. We're going to go ahead and bring him on up here so I can have a nice picture with both her and him. All right, buddy, we're going to go all the way up there. We're going to give her a second to give you some room. There she goes. Okay, come on up. Just watch her fur tail. There we go. And go ahead and sit. Sit, buddy. Go ahead and sit. We're going to get a picture here. Okay, we're going to stand out of the way. Stay right there. And there's a picture of a cheetah with her dog. Cool, eh? So as I was saying, very endangered. Out in the wild, there's several reasons as to why they're endangered. One of them, they are being hunted by humans, of course, with a beautiful pelt. But another one's a natural one. Out in the wild, there's all sorts of other predators that are much larger. She right now weighs about 110 pounds or so. The lions and hyenas, for example, the lions can get to be all the way up to 750 pounds or so. Definitely, these animals cannot compete and save the food and defend their food, that is, from those predators that may want to steal their food. But we do have an excellent program at the San Diego Wild Animal Park, our sister facility. Up there we have an excellent breeding program. We've had already over 100 baby cheetahs born up there. And I think that's something to clap about because these critters definitely need all of our assistance. And with this dynamic duo, we're going to be closing our show, but we do want to thank all of you for visiting us today. You know, just by walking through the gates, and in fact, any other additional purchases you might be making, not only helps out the zoo, but also programs worldwide that zoos involved with. So thank you very much for helping us out with our conservation efforts. Hope that you enjoy the rest of your stay. Enjoy Nighttime Zoo. Have a good one. See you later on.